Hey guys, today we're going to do something I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and that's taking a look at presidential physiques and ranking them according to physical fitness and development. We'll be going back to JFK in the 1960s and carrying the comparison right through to the present day with President Donald J. Trump. So let's get started. JFK was president between 1961 and 1963 when he was tragically assassinated by an assassin's bullet. Kennedy, who was a soldier in World War II, was no stranger to being physical, as this picture of him alongside his wife Jacqueline demonstrates. We can see that he is definitely lean, and that a definite V taper is present. He appears to have good symmetry, and a little bit of muscle as well in his chest and traps. Since JFK is the first on the list, he's going to go ahead and take first place. Moving forward from JFK, we go to Lyndon Baines Johnson. LBJ was president between 1963 and 1969. He took over midterm for President Kennedy after he was assassinated. Here he's seen by the poolside, probably sometime around his presidency. Like Kennedy before him, he has some signs of muscular development, but Johnson's arms appear to be slightly thicker than Kennedy's, which would definitely give him the advantage in muscular size. But Kennedy is still leaner, so has a little more definition. And I would still give it to Kennedy for symmetry because we were able to see a better V-taper in him. So after two presidents tallying up the scores, Kennedy is still in the lead. Let's see if that lasts through our next president, which is Richard Nixon. Nixon was president between 1969 and 1974. He was inaugurated twice, but relinquished to his VP, Gerald Ford, the office of President of the United States in the face of the Watergate scandal in 1974. In this picture, Nixon looks to be somewhat young. We can see that he's lean, has good shape, symmetry, and size. He would appear to combine the symmetry of Kennedy with the size of Johnson, and is probably slightly more muscular than Johnson. For these reasons, he's going to take the lead. He's going to have some tough competition from our next president, his own VP, President Gerald Ford. As mentioned, Gerald Ford took over for Richard Nixon after Nixon resigned. He was in office between the years 1974 and 1977, serving out the rest of Nixon's term. He was often the butt of jokes about his alleged clumsiness, but all in all, he was a pretty good sport about it. One thing you can't laugh about, though, is his physique. Here we see Gerald Ford back during his days as a soldier in the Second World War, and the first thing that pops out are his legs and the muscles of his chest. Like Johnson, Ford also isn't as lean as Kennedy, but his muscularity is sizable enough to still give him a good shape in spite of it. For this reason, it looks like Ford is now in the lead. Next in line after Ford is President Jimmy Carter. Carter was in office between 1977 and 1981 and had the misfortune of being in office during very slow economic times. Everything was just real slow. Everything except Carter. Seen here jogging and in a tank top, he will be the first president that we don't really have a bare-chested picture of. I do think we can see enough of his physique here to get a good idea though. It looks like out of all the presidents so far, Carter is the leanest. We can see a visible bicep and quads. He does not have the size or muscularity of Ford, but that leanness is number one without a doubt. As far as symmetry goes, I think he'd have to rank somewhere lower down, however. So if we tally up the score for Carter, he ends up taking third place. Now we move on to Mr. Hollywood himself, Ronald Reagan. President Reagan, who was president from 1981 to 1989, began his career as a Hollywood actor, and he knew very well the importance of appearance in politics. Here he is in his early career posing as a sculpting model for a sculpting class. Reagan's symmetry is very good here. He has a V-taper that you can make out in spite of the angle that his body's at, and he has great muscularity in his legs and arms. His definition is also quite good, as we can see his calves popping out. It looks like it will be a very tough call between Reagan and Ford for the number one place when it comes to muscularity, but I'm placing Reagan at number one for symmetry and number 3 for leanness behind JFK and number 2 for muscularity behind Ford. So after 5 presidents, it looks like we have Reagan in the lead, followed by Ford, then Nixon, Carter, JFK, and Johnson. Now moving on to the 1990s with President George H.W. Bush. we'll see how that changes. Now we move into the 1990s with President George H.W. Bush. Bush was Reagan's vice president and was in office between 1989 and 1993. Reagan's efforts to end the Cold War finally gave way during the presidency of George Bush Sr., and it was under his administration that the Cold War officially ended. He was quoted as saying that with the Cold War over, it was time to usher in a new world order. That's not scary. In any case, here we have another pic in a tank top, where we can't see the entire physique, but enough for our purposes. We can see in George Bush Sr. great separation of muscularity. You can see the bicep and deltoid popping, and the pectoral muscle being present on the chest. From what little we can see of the legs, it would appear as though they're also solidly muscular. Bush Sr., however, will be further down the ranks on symmetry, and would have to place behind Carter and Nixon. After George Bush Sr., we have William Jefferson Clinton. Clinton was president between 1993 and 2001. They call me Slick Willie. That's my name. No need to be ashamed. I'm not. Look at these curves. You know why I'm in office? Because the women love me. Can't none of them get enough of old William Clinton. I think you can take it from here. And because of that, Bill, you're last. Moving on, we have George W. Bush. But I didn't inhale. Moving on to George W. Bush, who served between 2001 and 2009 and was the son of President George H.W. Bush. GW is going to be pretty covered up in the pic we have of him, but we can see fair symmetry nonetheless and a good amount of musculature through his shirt, with arms, chest, and shoulders looking very strong. We can't really see too much definition because of the clothing, so he'll lose some points for leanness, but still takes a very respectable second place overall. Now we come to our first African American president, President Barack Hussein Obama. Obama can be seen here with arguably the best chest out of all the presidents that we've seen so far. Additionally, he has good symmetry and is fairly lean. I would place him behind Carter and Kennedy in leanness, just below Bush Jr. in muscularity, and for symmetry, I'd give him the number 2 position, putting him in second place overall. Finally, we come to our former and current president, President Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump, known for his opulent lifestyle, grandiose personality, and love of all things big, how will his physique stand out to the rest? The best picture we could find of Trump, fortunately for him, is from his youth, and he looks pretty good. Though wearing a shirt, we can see that his musculature not only rivals that of Ford, but would seem to exceed it. His legs seem to be slightly better, and his arms and chest look slightly better. You can see some biceps on his arms, and calves popping on his legs, so leanness is also not bad. I would put his definition just behind Reagan and Obama. As for symmetry, I'd place him right above Obama, putting him in second place overall.
Folks, it's a rigged system, believe me.
Unfortunately, Trump will be the last president for comparison, as we were unable to find any fair pictures of President Biden outside of recent pictures on the beach in his 80s, which didn't seem fair. We did find this one picture of him as a young man, however, where he does look fit, but too covered up to make any real comparisons. So with all things tallied up, President Reagan taking the number 1 position. It's worthy to note once more that this picture of Reagan was when he was posing for a sculpting class as a model. So it seems appropriate that the only president on the list to have been known to pose is the victor. Great job, President Reagan. You're an inspiration to us all. Of course, all the presidents mentioned had good physiques, and this was, after all, just for fun. So each of them should be looked up to for keeping in shape in spite of the rigors of the job. So next time you're thinking that you just don't have time to work out, think of the presidents. Some of them in their 70s and 80s still finding the time. We did start with the Kennedy, however, so we thought it'd be fun to end with the Kennedy in issuing a special shout out to RFK Jr., as had he won the presidency in 2024, he would, without a doubt, have had the best presidential physique of all time. If you like this type of content, go ahead and click that subscribe button, share, and like.